All right, so if you talk about the dominant soil in the region or the farm, that would be something like that. It could be shallow or it could be deeper, depends on where we are on the landscape. In general, these are very clay soils, or there's a high clay content, usually rich in humus, so the humus content is going to range between 2 to 4% in the topsoil. The biggest problem with these soils is the low pH. These soils has a very low pH, ranging from 4 to 5.5 basically, which makes the phosphorus very difficult to be available for the plants. So that's something which is a main problem, and they have to address every year. They are applying some calcium carbonate to the soil when they have the budget for that, because it's a pricey thing. So we are on the lowest, or one of the lowest part of this field. We're on the edge though. As you can see, it's not a very, the relief intensity is not that high. There's like 10 meters elevation difference, 10, 15 meters elevation difference within a large distance. So we wouldn't expect a lot of changes. So we don't expect anything eroded down to the parent material. What we see though is the effect of, there are two effects here. One is the effect of the plowing, or the previous plowing, or cultivation, and then also the low pH, creating a lighter topsoil than the subsoil. That's because of the low pH. The humus can move within the soil because it dissolves, and also because the topsoil has been cultivated for many years, and probably it was plowed. It got a lot of air, and of course the organic carbon has been oxidized. So that's why we can see the topsoil being lighter than the subsoil. On the first 10 centimeters, we can see that now they are doing minimum till, so they mainly just disc it. So that would be separated because of the structure, and you can see that all the starch is being cultivated into this region. And then we have to the 40 centimeters, we have this, let's call it A2 horizon, which is lighter than the subsoil, but it basically very similar. There's a light change in structure and pore structure. Below 40 to 80, that would be another A horizon, that would be our A3, and it's very distinct. We can see that there's a much higher organic carbon content. It has a very nice structure if you come down to the soil pit, and you will see, although it is high in clay, so it's difficult to cultivate in some periods of the year. And from that on, we can see this gradual change of organic carbon down to the parent material because of the mixing of the animals and the biology within the field, and also the roots can go that deep. The bottom is very moist, and as you can see, the roots are trying to reach, especially that must be from last year, based on how it's degraded, so it should be from last year when there was the drought, so they were like really trying to go deep to get some moisture out of the soil.
Corn last year.
Yeah, corn can go down to 3 meters actually, like the main roots. And then down below, although the topsoil is has a low pH around 5-ish, from 135 centimeters we do have actually calcium carbonate popping up really a lot. So if we apply HCl, we can see a lot of foaming being present, and we can see that there is calcium carbonate available. The parent material is some lust, but it has been mixed, so it's not the lust which you would expect on the Great Plains. It has been mixed together with some other material, and we can also see some signs of oxidized iron. So you can see that the groundwater or the soil moisture can reach up to that point, and it creates some manganese concentrations and also some iron concentrations. So in general, it's not the easiest soil because it's difficult to cultivate, and the low pH is something you really need to address, otherwise it's going to lose its productivity, but they are managing it well because they are putting back the organic matter, so they'll be able to increase the topsoil's organic matter. Really the main thing you need to address is the lack of calcium carbonate, because calcium is really important.
Elvileg megműlazítva talán, mert most ér oda, hogy 5 év után van értelme. Összerecsektetni 50 centig.
The question is about deep loosening. They plan to do deep loosening, which is a technique where you don't actually flip the soil. It just goes, what depth?
50, 55, 50.
So basically it's a technique when you have big knives going just straight down and you pull it, and it's just kind of loosens up the soil to have more air. It's
What is the density of the knives if you want to lose it?
what's the
density, how many knives do you have?
Yeah, 50 centimeters. You mean how much distance you have between
50
knives?
centimeters, the distance between the knives, and we use it usually between 50 and 55 centimeters deep, but if we want, we can go down till 70 centimeters deep in the soil. Usually when we get a new field, which was a lot of, when was plowing many years long, we usually make this because we can break down the plowing plow pan. This is why I told you that 50, 55, 60, 70 centimeters, because we would like to go deeper, 10 centimeters like the problem. Because 5 years ago it wasn't do this. Now slowly it's possible that we would like to try. We can do this after barley and after wheat. This was barley. This was barley seed. It gave the 7.48 tons barley seed per hectares.
Okay, so in WRB you would end up with an umbrysol. You would expect something with a molic, but since the pH is very low, your base saturation is going to be below 50. So you won't have a molic or a chernic horizon, but you will have an umbric horizon. And that's why it's going to go through all the way to the umbrysol, which means it has very nice, dark, high organic carbon content topsoil, which is deep enough, but you do have a low base saturation.
Not the clay, it's just organic.
No, it's not the clay. The color is the organic content, yeah. It's not the clay. It's the color of the organic carbon, yeah.
It's interesting because there is this philosophy that soils are influenced by the parent material characteristics, and it's funny that the pH is low despite that they have a lot of carbonate.
Yeah, but when you have a lot of rain, all calcium carbonate goes, that's why you have the secondary calcium carbonates, because of the precipitation. It's pretty higher.
To the point it dissolves, it leaches all carbon.
Yeah, you can see the secondary cast, pretty large secondary carbonate. So you can see that a lot has been leached. But it still doesn't have that clay movement, so it wouldn't classify an argic.
This movement, upward movement of the salt, it does not happen. Like they can, instead of just downward, but also because of the processes like
There is no salt content. I mean,
Evaporation, they bring salts in the topsoil.
but they don't have salt content now in these soils. I mean, it's just
I mean, like calcium carbonate.
calcium carbonate is moving in this region. That's the region where it was fluctuating. That's why you have these forms of secondary carbonates, these big ones. So it can't reach the top. Yeah. All right. Anyone want to go down? Okay, US salt taxonomy. I'm not sure about, but I think molly soils also need to have a high base. My US salt taxonomy is pretty rusty, but I think they need to have a high. I think it would go to the alpha soils.
This one?
Yeah.
Without the aluminum?
Aluminum? No, not oxysols, alpha soils. Alpha soils, because of the low pH. Probably, but I'm not sure about this. WRB is something I'm more familiar with, and it's not that rusty.
My question is, again, we have like 3 profiles here, right? There are 3.
Layers? No, there are more. I mean, horizons?
Yeah, horizons. Like we have.
Well, we have 3 main ones. One, I would say, let's say 2. This is a gradual one, and then the parent material. So I would say 4. You can divide this into 2 more, though.
This one, yeah.
Yeah, I would call it an AB, and this one would be a BC. So that would be an AP, an A2, an A3, an AB, a BC, and a CK.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a nice soil.
Yeah, it's my first time to see like profile.
Oh, really?
I used to see it as a soil specialist, but the soil, it was my interesting field, but I never read it.
Okay.
Soil physics.
Yeah.
So in Sudan, like we used to make this profile, but you know that in the southern part of the country is dominated with alluvial, the clay soil.
Yeah.
So when you have like this profile, the whole classifying profile gonna be like this is what they're going. Not the name of the soil, not.
I think in the floodplains you have some vertisols.
Vertisols.
Yes.
Yeah, of course, that's what I'm looking for.
Yes, you have the vertisols, yes.
So the whole first and second and third.
Yeah, for the vertisol you need a different clay. You need these shrinking and swelling clay types.
That's why I'm asking question. Is it clay or just is the organic?
There is clay, but I mean there is clay content, but the color is not coming from the clay, it's coming from the organic matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone? Just like in Jordan.
We haven't seen a soil profile.
It wouldn't be like that.
For me, it's because we have the red soil,
Yeah, you
and
have
we
the-
always say this color soil is really good quality.
Yes, it is a good quality soil.
This is rare.
Yeah. It's rare almost everywhere in the world except this latitude.
We have this. Most of the colors.
Yeah, the color is similar, but yours are more sandy. This is more fine.
Okay, and you dig 2 meters, right?
Yeah. I did it by hand in the morning.
Really?
Today?
Come
I
on.
thought.
Of course not. Yeah, look at these.
And this kind of soil, it goes till how many meters?
Yeah, it can go down to 30 meters. So that's not soil, and that's the parent material.
And how could you tell this is, you told us that's secondary calcium carbonate.
Yeah.
Why?
How it
secondary?
Because that comes, I mean, there's the calcium carbonate which comes from being dissolved in the topsoil and going down, and then it starts to move up and down. And when there's not enough moisture, it goes into this crystallized form, and these things are actually start to grow.
Do they become stones?
Yeah, this is if you would apply HCl, you could fully dissolve this thing.
Okay.
So that's a very usual form of secondary carbonates in Hungary, especially if you have fluctuating water or water movement where it is forming.
I'm really curious to have one in Jordan like this.
You wouldn't have secondary carbonates that much because you don't have, so you need the precipitation for that.
Yes, I know.
So which is going to leach
in
you.
general, the idea of soil profile.
Yeah. It would have been nice, but we didn't have the resources. Yeah, and you can't really do 2 meters in many places in Jordan because that you will end up with stones very close to the surface.
Why the pH is low and the plants is hard to absorb the phosphorus?
Well, it's because of the precipitation, everything is leaching out, and also there might be an influence of the river bank here. So I suspect there's a mixture of materials here. So before it raised, it received some clay, like low pH clays, and then this bank raised. But if you have low or high pH, the phosphorus is bond to the minerals or the clay or whatever, so it won't be available for the plants.
Okay.
So you have to keep your pH level on a neutral part of the scale, so to keep your phosphorus available for the plants.
What about adding nutrients like fertilizers?
Well, they add fertilizer, but it can be bonded. So that's why you first address the low pH.
Okay.
And then
how to increase the pH?
you add calcium carbonate.
Okay.
So there are calcium carbonate
Like fertilizers.
kind of fertilizers, and then you can just spread those, and then it's going to increase your pH level. But you need to add a lot, so it's a very expensive thing to keep.
From Jordan.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it cheap there?
Well, everything is calcium carbonate there basically, so that would be easy, yeah. So yeah. Any more question on this one? Or anyone want to come down? No? Okay, we will just look at the other one. There's another one just real quick because we are behind schedule. So we will drive up there to the other side of the field just to see that even if we have just 2 meters of elevation difference, how different the soil is already, okay? So as you can see, we are just a couple of meters above the previous one, and we already lost a lot from the topsoil. You can see how dense it is. All right, from down below, it's pretty much the same. Oh yeah. We have some clay down there. Anyway, so you can see that again we have this shallow, I mean on the top we have a lighter color, but this darker one is shallower, much shallower. Here just a couple of centimeters, and then we have the gradual change, and we are already in the parent material at 90 centimeters. And we had, I think the parent material was at around, what, 130 in the previous one. So that means 40 centimeter less soil, which is actually available, I mean, good for agriculture. So that shows how diverse the landscape can be. And imagine if we would go up on the upper part of the field, we would expect basically just a the plowing or the previous plowing depth having any organic carbon in the soil. And we are on a very gentle slope. If you look around in the region, they do have much steeper slope where there is way more erosion going on and there's topsoil moving downwards. So we can actually have this eroded down to the parent material, and that will really affect your yield potential. So what you can expect from your crop, and that's why these remote sensing tools and the soil sampling and modeling and precision agriculture can really add to their cultivation or to their farming methods. Because if you don't have any topsoil and it has been eroded down, you can apply any amount of fertilizer. Your water holding capacity, your nutrient providing capacity will be low, so we will always expect a low yield. So the first thing is not to apply more fertilizer, but to try to have that soil to recover and increase some organic carbon, get some nice structure again, and so on and so on. And then you will be able to get or expect higher yields from those. And you would really try to focus on these parts of the field where you can actually expect a high yield and a high profitability. Because with lower nutrient application, you can have a higher yield. Yeah. If you don't have any questions, I don't want to spend much more time on this because we are really behind schedule.
I was just wondering if, like here also they do precision farming, because when, as you said, if they keep applying fertilizers and there is these huge changes in soil properties, it does not make sense. And I was wondering if, when it comes to application of fertilizers, seedling or whatever, they do it on a precise way.
Size specific. Yeah, so if you look at the soil map, that would be one management zone, the lower one would be a different one, and the upper one would be a different one. So when the tractor moves, the fertilizer rate changes, and it's set automatically because we pre-program it for them, and then they just apply based on the shapefile. Yeah, so it makes sense, and it's a region where adds a little. There are regions in the country where it really adds a lot when just changing the rate of your seeding or the amount of fertilizer you are using. In some cases, in a field like that, for example, for a potassium application, we can see differences between 0 to 350 kilograms per hectare need to support your plants. So some of those parts would get 0 amount and other parts would get 350. If we wouldn't have the precision application, the whole field would get 200, no matter what. And then in some cases you would lose your fertilizer, and on some parts of the field you wouldn't provide enough for the plants. So you wouldn't get that yield which is potentially possible in that part of that field.